What is going on, everybody? It is that time of the month again for me to make everybody angry and make a Tekken tier list. I made the tier list and talked through the whole thing and my camera died, so I'm re-recording it. I made some grave mistakes before when I recorded it the first time, so I adjusted a few things, so I figure I'll talk around everybody and explain why I think they are where they are, and it should be pretty fun. So I'm gonna start from the top and work my way down to the bottom. In the top tier, surprise to absolutely nobody, we have Nina, and we have Yoshi, and we have Jin. Nina and Jin, very safe characters, very easy to pilot. Nina a little bit harder at a higher level, she's got a higher skill ceiling, but overall just very safe characters with very good buttons. Yoshi has flash. What else do I gotta say? He also does a ton of damage, he has one of the best steel pedals in the game, and he has some of the best tech traps in the game. So, what else is there really to say about Yoshi that hasn't been said? He's just a menace. Alyssa, even though not as many people play her as you would think with how strong she is disgusting. She has some of the best buttons in the game, she has a long range hell sweep, she has crazy space control. She decides where you're gonna fight, whether it's at long range or at close range. She has projectiles, she has like diving moves, she has a slide, and she does a lot of damage. And I haven't even talked about chainsaw stance, which just leaves her plus on everything. So that's Alyssa. Claudio and Shaheen, two very, very good characters. Generally very basic characters, but I think especially Shaheen is very slept on. People are not putting him high enough on the list. Claudio, I think, is a little bit better. He's a little bit simpler. He has a DP. He has disgusting corner pressure. He has really oppressive places he can put you in the corner and some not fun situations. Shaheen has a lot of guard crush options. He has the slide. He's got a lot of launchers. He's got a lot of counter hit utility. So, two very straightforward characters, but still probably of the strongest in the game. Law. Law is the scrub character, and he is just a masher. He's got some really good strings. He just presses his buttons and presses and presses and presses and presses. He's got 1+2, which is a counter hit launcher, but in heat, it is a normal hit launcher. His 1-1-1 string gets a combo, which I think is bizarre. So yeah, Law, disgusting character. He's too easy to be as good as he is. Fang has a lot of good buttons. I think he's a little bit slept on, even though he was played at Evo in the grand finals this year. I think people are kind of like downplaying him a little bit. At one point he was like top 5. Now he's definitely down here, but I think people are kind of letting it off to be he's worse than he actually is. I think he's strong. I think he's probably he's at least a top 10 character. Dragunov, speaking of downplay, I have to downplay a little bit because Dragunov is my main. Still very good. He was nerfed a couple times, even though it took too long for them to nerf him, and he shouldn't have been the way he was in the first place. I think he has fallen from grace at least a little bit. I don't think he's outside of the top 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, he's not outside of the top 10, but he's definitely not the top 1 monster that he was. King, even though at a high level he's hard to pilot because the grabs don't work as much, but we do see the John playing him to great success. Fun character, he's got a lot of goofy stuff. The grabs are very good counter hit utility. He's got some good heat strings. His heat is very strong. His heat smash is one of the best in the game for how much damage it does and how fast it is. And the fact that he could do Wavu into giant swing out of nowhere is disgusting. So King, that's why he's an A tier. Brian, people are starting to wake up to the fact that Brian is actually really good because all the really good people are getting nerfed a little bit. He's a two-touch character. He gets 2 counter hits on you and you're dead. He's got some of the highest damage combos in the game. His wall pressure is really good. He's got taunt setups. He's got, even though he's very hard, still amazing character in the game. Steve, similar to Brian, he does less damage, but I think he makes up for it. His offense is a bit better. It's a little safer. He doesn't have to super extend to do anything. Good Steve players will cancel their punches into the stances to keep up the plus frame pressure. He's got some good armored moves in his stances. Back 1 will always be a great tool, even though it's not as strong in this game as it was in previous Tekken games. Still, having a 12 aim counter hit launcher like that, really good. The Bear. Don't think the Bear's top 10 right now, just because of how the game state is, but Rangchu was able to show us that the Bear is really good. He's not the clown that he used to be in other games, but Rangchu, now being the first person to win Tekken World Tour twice, did it with the Panda in Tekken 7, and he did it with Kuma in this game, so Bear can't be that bad if he's winning Tekken World Tour. Kazuya, the strongest Mishima, does the most damage, probably the most straightforward out of all of them. Has electric, has hell sweep, has down forward 2, has good counter hit utility, and he's got a disgusting heat, arguably the best heat in the game in regards to how his character is pre and post being in heat. Xiaoyu has all the nonsense. She's very strong, probably one of the strongest gimmicky characters. I think what differentiates her between everyone above her, and besides Yoshi, is that she's probably like the most gimmicky, aside from the Bear maybe. But she's got the stances, she's got AOP to go underneath mids, so some characters struggle with that more than others, but overall very strong character, very specialist character. You don't usually see people picking her up in tournaments because she is so difficult. Clive. Thank God he's not the monster he was on launch. I hated him, but they nerfed things like forward 1+2 to make it not homing and it's not safe, so it's used exclusively as like a whiff punish tool at long range. And overall, I think the changes they made to him, making his things less safe, was the right direction to go. Clive is in a much better spot. Victor, gimmicky character, still very, very good. I do want to emphasize that even though this goes down to D tier, realistically in Tekken, like, the distance from the bottom to the top is not that high, so on most other power level tier lists, the bottom is probably B tier, but just for the sake of the nice shape, besides Panda, that's why we're doing it this way. But Victor is not a weak character. He's definitely weaker than he was, but he has a lot of oppressive stuff with his stances, a lot of plus frame mix-ups. His heat is okay. His heat smash is pretty decent for being low. And he's got some good counter hit utility, so Victor, think he's solid. Definitely a little bit more straightforward than some of the other stance characters, but not as strong as some of the more basic characters. Heihachi and Reina, even though they are both Mishimas and they have the Mishima tools, I just don't think they're nearly as good as Kazuya. I think Kazuya is probably the hardest to play, but Heihachi probably does the most damage and has warrior instinct, but outside of that, his tools are a lot harder to land. So I would say he's kind of similar to Brian, where he's kind of like a 2 or a 3 touch character, but you really got to just make the most of it. So you do have to lab the hard combos to get the most stuff, but still very strong. Reina, very similar. She's very difficult to play, but she has a lot more oppressive utility. Her wall pressure is very good. Her wall carry is very good, so she can create a lot of really good situations for herself. But I definitely think some of the other Mishimas are better than she is. Lily, despite what Arslan Ash says about Lily, I don't see that she is a big problem. Sure, she has a little bit of nonsense. She's got some evasiveness, but overall, her tools are pretty standard. She's got a lot of space covering options, but I think she's definitely decently strong, but is she the monster that Arslan seems to think she is? Absolutely not. June, I'm tired of the June downplay. She's not like bottom 5 in the game. So many people will tell you that, but I think they're just like perpetual down players. She is definitely decent, not the strongest. She's more, I don't know if I'd say she's a specialist, but she's definitely got some things that, like, if you've mastered her, you can make use of them. She has a little bit of deceiving things. She's got launching throws. She's got mids that look like lows. She's got her stupid fucking stances, so she's pretty good. Zafina, definitely also not as bad as some people would make you think. She has great stance options, especially in her like crouching stance. She has that like armored heat engager mid. Shadow 20Z put up a great showing with her at Tekken World Tour this year. Her stances are good. She's got good armor options. She's got some good advantage situations. The only things I think she would probably be lacking is her small Tekken isn't the best, but she's still pretty decent. Hwoarang is Hwoarang. He's very difficult to play. He's got like 10 stances, and they all do different things that go into each other. He's definitely one of the more specialist characters in the game. Has a lot of plus frame situations, but if you lab the character, then he's easy to fight against. The sidestep windows are pretty decent. The low parry options are pretty decent. So if he's not just frame skyrocketing you and you're not just sitting there blocking and guessing, he's not much of an issue. Raven is Raven. Not super strong. He's got some gimmicky stuff, but overall he has to commit very much to doing some things that a lot of people don't have to commit to. Sure, his clones are annoying, and sure, some of his stuff might look a little bit ambiguous. I think overall he's not a very strong character, but he's definitely not on the weakest side. But not many people are playing him either, so maybe if he had some more popularity, we'd be able to see what he could really do. Leroy, thank God he's not what he was in Tekken 7, but unfortunately he's pretty dog shit. Leroy has some cool stuff in Heat where he just punches you a lot and builds up chip damage, and then he's able to kind of chip you down until he just finishes you at the end of a round. But overall, he's pretty basic. Sure, Hermit Stance is a little bit annoying to deal with, but with just some patience, you could pretty easily shut this guy down for what he wants to do. Paul, not what he was in other games. Thank God defense isn't as strong as it was in other Tekken games. So Paul struggles a little bit. He's still playing Tekken 7 while we're all in Tekken 8. He is a scrub killer though, because he wants you to press into him. He wants you to mash into his strings. He just wants you to do all that stuff so he could get counter hits. But if you're a half decent player and you're just a little bit patient, Paul doesn't have anything to fear besides his big punch, which does tons of damage, but that's pretty much it. Lars, probably the easiest stance mix-up character in the game. Not really much to say about him. He's very straightforward. He's got some good oppressive tools, but he's also got to commit to a lot of things. If you lab against him, you'll probably know what to do a lot better. He does have things like a DP kind of move that's pretty strong, and yeah, he can be a little bit oppressive if you're just letting him do his thing, but overall, Lars isn't that much of a problem. He just feels that way if you're not super confident in pressing into him. Azucena, not the monster she was when the game came out. Hopefully we see more buffs for her in the future. She's really cool, but unfortunately, with the nerfs to while running 3-2, or 2-3, and all the other stuff, she's just not the monster she was. I hope we see some more Azucena love in the future, but unfortunately there's not much to say about her. Leo is an interesting one because stance mix-up character, but the mix-ups aren't really that mind-gamey. It's generally not too difficult. Even if you guess wrong, he doesn't put you in like that many tough situations, so Leo, not the strongest character in the game. Probably on the bottom, towards the bottom, just because of how basic the mix-ups are, and the mind games just really aren't there. Deviljin is Deviljin. The monster he was at the beginning of the game is no longer there. He got nerfed into the ground. He does still have the Mishima tools with electric and hell sweep, and he does get a full not a full combo, but like a half combo off of his hell sweep, which is pretty good. It probably should do more damage. He has to commit a lot to do certain things. He's probably one of the harder Mishimas, even though he has probably the most nonsense out of all of them. But Deviljin's a cool character. Hopefully we see him get buffed, but I believe this is the first Tekken game where he is not top tier, and I'm not too upset about it. Asuka, just kind of June, but worse. She has Sabaki, and she has a couple counter hit things, but that's pretty much all she's got that is really good. And even then, those aren't like super crucial tools. But I don't really got much to say about Asuka. She's just not it. Jack 8, really cool character, really cool fundamental character. Most Jack 8 players at higher levels are amazing at the game, at least with their movement and stuff. Every Jack 8 knows how to Korean backdash. Other than that, he's just kind of weak though. He's a little slow. Sure, he's got some guard crush options, but I don't really see him putting up big results anytime soon. Eddie is another scrub killer, but once you lab him, he's kind of dog shit. He doesn't really do anything too scary. If you're just confident on when you're pressing into him, he dies. There's not really much else to say about him besides don't get caught in the vortex. Lee, pains me to put Lee down here because I love Lee, and he is one of my favorites in terms of like how he looks and kind of how he plays, but unfortunately in a game where everyone has nonsense, Lee doesn't have that much nonsense. He's pretty bare bones compared to people. He doesn't have super great advantage situations. He's not that scary on offense. He's got very good defense, I will say. He's got some good counter hit utility, but his heat isn't very good and his normal offense isn't very good, so I can't really justify putting him any higher. And then Lydia, I'm gonna say is bottom 1, even though Panda's there, just because she is probably the only stance character that loses more often than not when doing her stance mix-ups, where if she picks the right option and hits you, she doesn't get super advantage, but if she guesses wrong, she dies. So that's really what I gotta say about Lydia. Sure, Heaven and Earth is really good, but only accessible in Heat. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do you agree with my tier list? Probably not. Make sure to let me know in the comments. Tell me I'm dog shit. And I will catch you guys in the next one.